Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Gordon. We are back with another video. Today we're talking about altcoin season, and are we even going to get a true altcoin rally? As always, if you enjoy the content, please make sure to smash that thumbs up button below, hit subscribe, hit that bell notification icon, and don't forget to grab your completely free copy of The Rise of Bitcoin, link in the description below this video. Grab that now, and let's talk about altcoin season. So at the time of recording this video, Bitcoin is sitting at just around $107,000. And the reason I'm bringing up Bitcoin is because I think in order to get a true catalyst for an altcoin season, we're going to need to see Bitcoin price moving back a little bit higher here towards those previous all-time highs that was only about, 12 to 15 days prior to this video at around $126,000 here on the 6th of October. Okay, we're right around that 200-day simple moving average right now. And because we had a very sharp pullback on Friday, the 10th of October, and we've kind of been dribbling a little bit lower since then, we have actually seen Bitcoin dominance moving ever so slightly higher here over the past week or two. Again, we had a huge spike up here all the way to 63.5% on Friday, October 10th. That means that people were trying to get out of altcoins, rotating into Bitcoin as a little bit of a safe haven, and naturally, Bitcoin's dominance moved to the upside. And really, what I'm trying to get at here is we typically don't get a true altcoin rally until we see a sharper breakdown in Bitcoin dominance. We've seen this multiple times historically in previous cycles. This breakdown here in Bitcoin dominance from 73% all the way down to 39% was the true altcoin season during the 2021 cycle. In a similar way, back in 2017, again, we had Bitcoin dominance all the way up at 95% in March of 2017, breaking all the way down to this 35% level over the course of the second half of the year. And again, we have seen Bitcoin dominance beginning to break down here, but we have had it increasing more locally here since the middle of September. And we're right at 59.5%. Again, something similar did kind of happen in the previous cycle when you had that initial breakdown from 73%. And then we did have to spend a few months here kind of hanging out around this kind of this 60 to 64% area. This was about an 8 to 9 week period from the middle of January towards the middle of March, or even a little bit later, until we saw that breakdown on a more dramatic level. And so I don't know if it's going to play out exactly the same way, but we have had that initial breakdown since this kind of 66% area. And now we're kind of consolidating here in this zone between 57 and 60%, in my opinion, before we do get a larger breakdown at some point. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen here in Q4 2025. Will it bleed over a little bit into 2026? It's definitely possible, but I do think we're going to see Bitcoin dominance break down deeper at some point during this cycle and moving towards this zone I have marked on the chart here, towards this kind of 42 to 49% dominant area. Again, what we typically see here is altcoins making a move much, much higher on a percentage basis compared to Bitcoin. And that is what forces Bitcoin dominance to come down into this area. Now, I'm not sure exactly where it's going to bottom out. If I had to guess, I would say it's somewhere between 40 to 45%. Last time around, we came all the way down to 38% at these lows. I don't know if we're going to come all the way down to 38%. I think if we can land somewhere between 40 to 45%, that's going to be pretty good. And anywhere below 50% would be a good profit-taking zone for altcoins once we get down into that Bitcoin dominance area. Okay, if we look at total crypto market cap, this is obviously inclusive of Bitcoin, but again, we've come right back down to retest the 200-day simple moving average. We're sitting at 3.6 trillion. But if we look at total 2, which is everything excluding Bitcoin, again, we have had a nice run up here over the course of the past few months since March. But again, with the recent pullback in the markets, we have come down to 1.45 trillion, having been as high as 1.76. And so I do think there's potential for this to move substantially higher, and total 3 then being another real proxy for the altcoin market, because it's excluding everything it's including everything outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum. And we're currently sitting back under $1 billion here at back under $1 trillion at 982 billion, but we did get as high as almost 1.2 trillion here in the past few weeks. So again, I'm looking to see, are we going to hold the 200-day simple moving average on a few of these key charts related to altcoins? But the other main chart that I'm referencing here is this one here, which is total 2 divided by Bitcoin. Why is this important? Well, again, if we look back at historic cycles, you can see what this chart is mapping is altcoin outperformance versus Bitcoin during those altcoin season rallies in 2017 and obviously again in 2021 respectively. And what happened here is you had these channels breaking and these downtrends breaking and the price of alts essentially breaking out versus Bitcoin. This happened here again in February 2021. You saw this few week period of consolidation after the breakout of the long term downtrend that went back to the previous highs of the previous cycle. We broke the downtrend. We had to consolidate and retest the trend for a few weeks here before we eventually moved much more sharply to the upside. The same thing happened in 2017 with that big move. And we can see here that in August, we did actually break out of that long term downtrend, once again, remaining intact since the highs of the previous cycle. And again, going all the way back here, we did get a breakout. We've come right back down to retest it. Look at that wick on this candle from the 10th of October. We wicked all the way down to retest it, and we're consolidating here at this moment in time, somewhat similar to this consolidation period we had after the previous cycle breakout before the larger move to the upside. Again, I've got this zone marked in here. I do think at some point we're going to see this chart, total 2 divided by Bitcoin, moving up and to the right for price action to get up into this kind of, this 21 to 26 million dollar area. Will we get all the way back up here to 29 to 30 million? I'm not sure. It's possible, but I do think there's room for us to move higher here. We have technically broken out of a long-term downtrend. This remained intact since September of 2022. And so when you break out of a long-term downtrend like this, you don't very quickly just break back below it and keep dropping lower. Yes, it's natural to do a retest like we had on the 10th of October, but if we can consolidate similar to what happened in the last cycle, I think that gives us permission to move higher here over the coming months. Again, will this happen as we move into the end of October and November? Maybe. I'm hoping that it can. It may spill over into 2026. We have more rate cuts coming with the end of October and potentially another one in December. And so what I think that's going to happen, or what that's going to spell, is more capital rotation into risk on assets. And we've seen gold moving to fresh all-time highs here over the past number of weeks, 9 green candles in a row here. And again, Bitcoin does typically follow this move after about 70 to 90 days. If I map the price of Bitcoin in here, and again, the only reason I'm sharing this for Bitcoin is because I think Bitcoin needs to lead the charge before alt will truly rally after it. But if we bring in, I think that is the Bitcoin dominance chart, that is the incorrect chart. If I bring in the Bitcoin chart here in a new pane, what you'll notice is during periods where gold makes a very big run to the upside here, you can actually see as gold was moving higher here, Bitcoin was actually moving lower back in December and January and into February and March of this year. Gold was rallying during that period, but Bitcoin was actually breaking down. And then by the time gold actually began to cool off and consolidate, that was when Bitcoin made its next move. By the time gold was reaching these highs, that was the bottom on the chart here for Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin ran from 76,000 all the way up to 105 during that period, while gold was actually simply consolidating. So this move to the upside for gold, I think this bodes well. We've seen the exact same pattern play out in very recent history, gold moving parabolic while Bitcoin moving down. And then by the time gold starts to consolidate, Bitcoin shoots higher. And so I think if we see gold starting to sell off here, zooming into the daily, you can actually see here we had a lot of selling pressure on Friday's session for gold with this red candle. Maybe this is the beginning of the consolidation period, similar to what we had here during the period of March and April. And then we might have Bitcoin moving higher. And again, if Bitcoin moves higher, we're going to see Bitcoin dominance move a little bit higher temporarily. But I think that then sets the stage for once Bitcoin dominance, moves maybe back towards this kind of 60, 61% area. I do think that then gives us permission to see this happen and a breakdown of Bitcoin dominance towards this zone. That is how I'm thinking about it. That's what I'm thinking is the potential setup here for an altcoin season, maybe a little bit later in Q4, maybe as we move into Q1 2026. Again, we're looking at some key data points towards the end of this month, with rate cuts coming on October 29th, with hopefully more ISM data to show us that this is ticking back towards above 50 on this chart. That's going to signal some risk on appetite for the markets, more capital flowing into Bitcoin and equities as a result. Equities have continued moving higher. They've been consolidating here the past few days after the October 10th drawdown as well. This all has an impact on what ultimately plays out for altcoin season. I think Ethereum needs to move back and get above $5,000. Again, long-term downtrend for Ethereum has been broken out of here by the by the first or second week in August. Yes, we've come down to retest it on the weekly. It's been holding thus far over the past few weeks. I'm looking for this to hold so it gives Ethereum permission to move to $5,000 and beyond. And I think that is also the next catalyst for alts to continue moving higher and have that true altcoin rally. That is it for this altcoin season breakdown, guys. As always, if you got any value at all out of the video and the charts we looked at today, please just take 3 seconds, smash that thumbs up button underneath my finger before you jump away from this video. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon. Don't forget to grab your free copy, The Rise of Bitcoin, waiting for you in the description. Grab it now, and we'll catch you in the next one.